Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Don't eat up my time. Thank you. I want to thank you all for that very warm welcome. I have to start out by saying one very important thing. I'm not politically correct. And I hate political correctness because it's antithetical to the founding principles of this country. And the secular progressives use it to make people sit down and shut up while they change everything. It's time for us to stand up and shout out about what we believe in. You know, I devoted my career to studying and operating on the human brain. This remarkable organ defines our humanity. It gives us the ability to not only feel and observe, but to reason. When we elect a president, we need to use that power of reasoning to look at their history, their character, what kind of people they really are. It makes all the difference in the world for us. And it is going to be so critical right now. We must resist the temptation to take the easy way out and to passively accept what is fed to us by the politically elite and the media, because they don't know what they're talking about, but they have an agenda. Now, we must also be weary of the narrative that's being advanced by some in our own party. The notion that a Hillary Clinton administration wouldn't be that bad, the effects would only be temporary. You know, that it would only last for 4 and at most 8 years. They're not using their God-given brain to think about what they're saying, because it won't be 4 or 8 years, because she will be appointing people who will have an effect on us for generations, and America may never recover from that. That's what we have to be thinking about. You know, interestingly enough, we have to start thinking about what would Hillary Clinton do if she was in fact the president. She would appoint Supreme Court justices, she would appoint federal judges, and that would have a deleterious effect on what happens for generations to come. Not only that, but she would continue with a system that denigrates the education of our young people, puts them in a place where they're never going to be able to get a job, where they're always going to be dependent, and where they can therefore be cultivated for their votes. This is not what America is all about, this kind of deception. And this is what we, the people, have the necessary obligation to fight. Now, one of the things that I have learned about Hillary Clinton is that one of her heroes, her mentors, was Saul Alinsky. And her senior thesis was about Saul Alinsky. This was someone that she greatly admired and that affected all of her philosophies subsequently. Now, interestingly enough, let me tell you something about Saul Alinsky. He wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. On the dedication page, it acknowledges Lucifer, the original radical who gained his own kingdom. Now, think about that. This is a nation where our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, talks about certain inalienable rights that come from our Creator. This is a nation where our Pledge of Allegiance says we are one nation under God. This is a nation. This is a nation where every coin in our pocket and every bill in our wallet says, "In God we trust." So are we willing to elect someone as president who has as their role model somebody who acknowledges Lucifer? Think about that. The secular progressive agenda is antithetical to the principles of the founding of this nation. And if we continue to allow them to take God out of our lives, God will remove himself from us. We will not be blessed, and our nation will go down the tubes. And we will be responsible for that. We don't want that to happen. Now, Donald Trump, he understands this very well. He understands that the blessings of this nation come with the responsibility to ensure that they are available to all, not just the privileged few. This is exemplified by his willingness to take on the establishment against all odds. It is evident in his passion for the American worker. It is found in his desire to put his considerable skills to work on behalf of American interests, not his self-interest. I'm proud to support Donald Trump, an extraordinary businessman, the right leader for a time such as this. But you know what? It is not about Donald Trump. It is not about me. It is about we, the people. And Thomas Jefferson said that we would reach this point because we, the people, would not be paying attention, and it would allow the government to grow, to expand, and to metastasize, and to try to rule us. But he said, before we turn into something else, we, the people, would recognize what was going on, what we were about to lose, and we would rise up, and we would take control of our nation. And I say now is the time for us to rise up and take America back.
This is what we call smart power, using every possible tool and partner to advance peace and security, leaving no one on the sidelines, showing respect even for one's enemies, trying to understand and, insofar as psychologically possible, empathize with their perspective and point of view.
Don't hate your enemies, empathize with them. That's the word from Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and the presidential hopeful, taking a lot of heat for those comments. She made them at Georgetown this week. Clinton is considered to be the Democratic frontrunner for 2016. Prohibitive, according to many. Are her chances diminishing in the wake of these comments? Joining us now, conservative columnist and author Ann Coulter. Ann, thanks for joining us this morning. How much do you respect and empathize with ISIS?
Excellent way of putting it. No, I liked her comments. I think it's a good start, and maybe we could now get her to empathize with her enemies, the American middle class. We'll start with ISIS and move into the poor middle class and working class Americans who can't get jobs thanks to Democratic policies. They have no sympathy for the American middle class.
This is the kind of comment that I think a well-paid flack could explain. You know, explain away.
But you have to constantly explain this one.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly my point. Would her husband have ever said something like this?
No, she's getting to be like Joe Biden with these comments. And then she did the follow-up on Obama's "you didn't build it." What did she say? Something along those lines. No corporation.
Right, and she knows because she was poor. This is someone who hasn't driven a car or made her own breakfast in 30 years. But she was desperately poor there, trying to make the note on 2 multi-million-dollar houses. So, what does this bode for her presidential campaign, which we all assume is about to kick off earlier in the year?
I do not think that she is the automatic nominee, which we're being told mostly by MSNBC, but their argument is we owe her. Well, no, we don't owe her. You're the ones who dumped her for trophy wife Obama. What, the rest of America is supposed to feel guilty over that? But that's really their only argument for her, but she isn't that likable.
So if you compare her to someone like Elizabeth Warren, now a lot of conservatives dismiss Elizabeth Warren because they don't like her views, of course, because they're pretty darn left-wing.
Right.
But there's an internal coherence to Elizabeth Warren's worldview that I don't see from Hillary Clinton. Clinton.
Right, and if Elizabeth Warren meant what she said, which she doesn't, I'd agree with her. But, you know, the phony attacks on Wall Street,
right.
Well, she's elevating, you know, Barney Frank and Chris Dodd as the ones fighting Wall Street. No. They're Wall Street's butt boys. Maybe you haven't been paying attention, Elizabeth. But I want a lot of Democrats to run. I want Let 1,000 Flowers Bloom. I want de Blasio and Jerry Brown. And Webb is apparently running, Jim Webb.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. We need Elizabeth Warren. Whereas on the Republican side, for the first time ever, I would really like if we didn't have a bunch of crazy candidates. If you haven't been a governor or a senator, preferably a governor, please do not run for president as a Republican. We do not want Carly Fiorina. I love her, but no, she can't run. Same thing with Ben Carson, fantastic surgeon. I never wanted Ronald Reagan to be my surgeon. We can't have congressmen. No wasting time. It's down to Romney, Ted Cruz, Chris Christie, or Scott Walker. That's it, Republicans.
It's going to be a long campaign season, and that's the reason I'm just so glad you're here. And I hope that you will come back often. Ann Coulter, thanks a lot for joining us.
Good to see you.
Well, yesterday on The View, of all places, Whoopi Goldberg took exception to her language. And she said that essentially Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was not giving establishment Democrats like John Lewis and Dianne Feinstein and what they have done in the past in Congress enough credit. Listen to this.
You just got in there, and I know you got lots of good ideas, but I would encourage you to sit still for a minute and learn the job before you start pooping on people and what they've done. You got to do something, too.
So, at 29 years old, she's taken on Nancy Pelosi, joined a protest in front of her place. She also talked about getting some candidates to run against incumbents on the Democratic side for the nomination for different seats, and that's what Whoopi Goldberg found offensive. Also, the fact is she is extremely charismatic, extremely confident. I think that she comes off very likable, but her ideas are so in a way in which I think that Democrats cannot be that comfortable. She's got 2 million followers, and 60 Minutes is featuring her, and she's talking about becoming Sweden or Norway or Venezuela.
Taxing at 70%.
Yeah, to 70%, only if you make over $10 million.
Well, then she also went back and forth with Steve Scalise, and Mark Cuban said, hold on, stop with the partisan rhetoric. He tweeted this out. He said, be a radical, be different, be a change leader, innovate. It's your generation's turn to govern. Go for it. But please leave our bad habit of using partisan language, us versus them, Republicans versus Democrats, libs versus conservatives behind. We are all in this together. Change the game to change the world.
And I think that's great because he sees the frustration of the outside in the business world, which almost caused him to get in the political world, because it's always us versus them. And we know in life there's always a middle ground. Whether you're bidding on a house or trying to buy a car, you negotiate, you get the best deal possible. If you don't get a deal in politics, you sit in your corner and wait for the next election. And it's getting a little redundant. We're about 20 years into waiting for the next election.
Well, you know, the president has his primetime thing tonight, and Democrats are saying we want our primetime thing, and there were some rumors that maybe Ocasio-Cortez would be the one to speak out. I'm sure Nancy would say no. I'm sure Chuck Schumer would say no. But you can rise too fast, and you do have to learn the job and let the people who have been in there for a lot longer than you kind of take the leadership roles.
So what do you think about her comments and also the comments from Whoopi Goldberg? Email us, friends@foxnews.com.